Today we've got Brandon Lamb's 2007 6.7 truck on the dyno. This is a manual transmission truck. You put a clutch in it, did a S&S 14 mil CP3, S&S 150 horsepower, 150% injectors, has a 472/8710 turbo on it, fleet second gen piping kit, steed speed manifold. It's got a list of parts, ASI, 4-row radiator with flex light fans, something that he's built from the ground up, bought the truck stock, and has done a long list of parts. So today's his day to get the thing dialed in. He's got about 500 miles on it, and we are also going to be working on a staging limiter so that he can do some drag racing with it later. So we're going to put this thing through its paces on the dyno today and get the thing dialed in and get him going to the drag strip. He wants to go to the drag strip either tonight or tomorrow night and see what kind of times he can run shifting his own gears in a manual. Okay, we made a couple runs on Brandon's truck now, and the tires that were on it are just a 285 stock tire, and they were tall tread, and they felt like they were pretty firm, and I thought they would work, but I could tell during the stabilized time that it was actually pushing through the RPM. So we did a tire swap on the dyno real quick, and just the tire swap went from 872 horsepower to 927 horsepower, so 55 horsepower gain in just making sure that the dyno's actually got a hold of the tire. So now I have a little bit of rail pressure fluctuation. It's not actually overshooting, undershooting. I just see a little bit of a bounce in the log. So I'm going to adjust that, and then we're going to turn it up a little bit more, see if more fuel makes more power. He's on a stock bottom end still, so we're still protecting his rods and trying to not break the stock bottom end. And then once we get done with peak dyno testing, we're going to play with his staging limiters. It being it's a manual truck, he wants to be able to have a staging limiter going to the drag strip. He's got a button on a shifter that he can hold in, and that will limit it to whatever RPM we hold it to, so he can hold his foot on the floor. It'll go to 3,000 or 3,200 RPM. That way he can roll into the beams with his with the clutch and launch it relatively consistently. He wants to try to do some racing with this. Just a fun truck, so it'll be a good time seeing if we can get this thing to play nice with being a manual and a 472. On these taller treads, anytime I can see where the front tread pushes back against the back tread, you can actually see marks from where the tread has been touching each other. That means the tire is rolling over itself and it's not getting full power transfer to the roller. So generally, if a guy brings in a set of tires that has tall tread and we make a couple rips on it and we see the treads are touching, we're going to swap tires and we're going to pick up some horsepower. But anything that's 50% or lower, or it's been run on the road for a while where it's been heat hardened, where the tread's not actually moving around, it'll do max power on the dyno, no problem. Okay, we got Brandon's truck all wrapped up today. We finished up at 1,005 horsepower, which is an awesome number for a all-stock long block 6.7 truck. It's got ARP 625s, valve springs, push rods, all the supporting mods, and he is going to be excited to get this thing on the road, and he wants to go do some drag racing with it. We got the staging limiter set at 3,200 RPM. So he's, like I said, he'll be able to hold that button on the shifter and put his foot on the floor. It won't go past that RPM. That way he can clutch it into the beams and hopefully get some decent reaction times and 60-foot times. But obviously that's takes driver input, and he'll have to get some data logs at the track till we know if we can dial that in perfectly. But we're going to get this thing out the door and get him headed down the road. There it is, the last truck on the list. That was in the 900s. So Brandon Lamb goes 1,005 and what, 1482 torque? There we go. All right, today we have David Large's 06 on the dyno. This is a truck that he was here, what, a year ago or so? Yeah. And with a different setup, you did a little over 1,000 horsepower with 200%?
Yeah, 200%.
Yeah. So now it is a 6.7 long block. It has 400% overs.
4% over.
And I'll let him go over turbo setup. Just tell the guys what you did on this new build and what your goals are.
Yeah, there's a 475 5-blade over a 96, 115 on the housing.
T6 foot on the manifold.
Yeah, and then the atmosphere is a 94 Garrett GTR 124 exhaust housing. That's about it. Johnny Stance did all the turbo work.
Right.
Awesome.
What CP3s? You have a 14 mil on the bottom?
Yeah, SNS over a stock CP3.
And then this has one of our Comp 2 trans that he bought a couple years ago. And then he's upgraded to a 35 spline input, fat output, so it's basically like a Comp 3 equivalent transmission. He has what, fast 220?
Fast 220.
But otherwise, it's still full interior truck. It's got a flatbed on it, so it's got a little bit of a farm truck look, but he's got some radial tires, and he likes to go to the drag strip and pump out some people. So hopefully, I mean, he's got a recipe for making some good power, and we're going to put it through its paces and see what numbers we make today.
Yep. And big shout out to Dylan Moon, Full Moon Diesel.
Yes, for sure. He's from down in the Alabama, right?
Yeah, Delaware Billy's on.
Yep, and Dylan Moon did a lot of the work on it, so hopefully the numbers pay off, and then you can go bust some butt on the drag strip this weekend.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been a good day. So far we have made 1,601 horsepower with this setup, which has very much exceeded David's expectations. But we're looking at some numbers on boost and drive, and we're seeing that drive pressure is 100 psi and boost is a little over, right around 75 psi. And we have a bigger exhaust housing here for the Garrett on the atmosphere. So we're going to go from the 124 exhaust housing up to a 160. That's a housing that we had laying around here at the shop. So we're going to pull the housing off and see if we can get rid of some of this drive pressure. If we can, I believe it'll make a little bit more power. So this will be an hour's worth of work to see if we can get a little bit of a gain. Okay, we have a new top spot. So Garrett Rice gets bumped at 1,006, and David Large is going to take number one with 1,607 horsepower. For now, this was fuel only. Okay, we finished the day at 1,607 horsepower. I told David you have to be so happy you're like, you have to feel 6 feet tall, but he's 6'6", so.
I guess it's right, 6 inches.
We tried a bigger exhaust housing on the Garrett, and we were because we were seeing like 98 pounds of drive and 75 pounds of boost, and we were wanting to free up that drive. But we are thinking, because we switched that, and it went from, we picked up what, 5 horsepower, and drive pressure was still 100 pounds of drive, and it still has a 4-inch downpipe. So at this point, we are thinking that the 4-inch downpipe may be a restriction. That's going to be one of the next things that we're going to do is fabricate a 5-inch downpipe, and if that doesn't pick it up, and then at that point we'll go swap the T6 115 housing on the manifold and put that up to a 132. We don't really want to do that if we don't have to, because that will affect drivability some. But altogether, he's got a solid 1,600 horsepower hot rod. We did 4 poles over 1,600. So it's safe to say he's got a 1,600 horsepower truck. But I guess where do we go from here? You're gonna leave the truck here, and we're gonna do a
bolt and roll bar. And
yep.
get the 5-inch down pipe. Maybe even shoot a little nitrous to
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's kind of the goal. We were kind of wanting to spray it and see what kind of power it would make, but with the drive pressure restriction that we were having and us deciding to go with a 5-inch downpipe, we decided to wait to spray it until after the downpipe is on. So we'll get a bolt-in roll bar fabricated for it and put the 5-inch downpipe on it, and then we'll put it back on the dyno here in a couple weeks from now.
Yep.
And then have this thing ready to roll for Rocky Top. So if you guys want to see this truck in action, see us at Crossville, Tennessee, and that is what, end of July, July 25th.
I think 25th.
Yeah. So it was a good day altogether, and we will see you guys next time.